Hello everyone. So in today's lesson we will discuss about the probable questions that we will see in AWS Solution Architect Associate examination, and we'll cover most of the every scenario question that we might see in the examination. So we'll cover up the SQS, which is a simple queue service. We'll also cover up SNS, which is simple notification service. We'll cover up SWF, the simple workflow service, as well as STS, which is security token service. So let's get started with SQS. And also quick note, I wanted to mention you guys that I'll be creating a link for this document in the description below, so you can access this document as well. Okay, so talking about SQS is a simple queue service, right? So it stores messages while waiting for a computer to process them, and it is always a pull based system, so it's not a push based system like SNS, right? So talking about SQS, we can see it's fully managed queuing service, and it's loosely coupling. That means it has high availability, scalability, and reliability, and it uses multiple redundant availability zones within a region, and it can be integrated with the help of IAM. So you can define a set of roles, use set of permissions, right? And it is PCI DSS compliant, so it can transmit merchant and card data, and multiple it can be used with multiple producers and consumers who can interact with SQS at the same time. And talking about pricing, for the first million requests per month, it's free, and you'll be charged very less later on, right? So talking about message size, it's limited to 256 KB. That's the thing you need to notice. And talking about the programming language that it supports JSON, XML, and unformatted text. And SQS supports at least once delivery. So what does it mean, at least once delivery? So more than one copy can be delivered. So just in case you are getting multiple copies of an for the order processes, right? So you need to check it out and see the messages, right? Because what can be the worst scenario is you can the customer might get a multiple number of orders, and we might end up sending them a number of packages, multiple number of packages, right? So talking about SQS, it has basically two types. So what are those two types? They are standard and FIFO, right? So standard is a default, and talking about FIFO, always remember ordering, right? When you hear the word FIFO, think of ordering. So FIFO means first in, first out. Okay, so there's proper ordering, right? There's exactly once processing, and it's limited to 300 transactions per second. Okay, so when we talk about visibility timeout, by default the visibility timeout is 30 seconds, and the maximum is 12 hours, right? So you can set a time anywhere in between from 0 to 12 hours, right? So, but by default it's 30 seconds. So SQS guide: when a customer receives and processes a message from a queue, the message remains in the queue. That means AWS SQS doesn't automatically delete the message. So always remember, when you get the message that's remaining in the queue, you need to delete it manually. So SQS is a distributed system. There's no guarantee that the customer actually receive the message. For example, due to connectivity issue or due to an issue in the consumer application, right? The customer should delete the message in the queue after receiving and processing it. So that basically means SQS doesn't directly delete the message, and you need to delete it manually. Okay, so immediately after a message is received, it remains in the queue. To prevent other consumers from processing the message again, SQS sets a visibility timeout, right? So as I had mentioned one scenario that there might be a multiple number of orders, right? So what can we do to prevent that? We can set a visibility timeout, right? So what does it do? It's a period of time during which AWS SQS prevents other consumers from receiving and processing the message. So always remember the default visibility timeout is 30 seconds, okay? And you can set it from anywhere between 0 seconds to 12 hours. But the default is 30 seconds. And it can be used along with auto scaling groups, right? SQS. And you can create a priority queue. So what do I mean by that? So let's say you have a premium fee paying member and the standard member, right? So you want different messages to be delivered for them. So these things you can do it with the help of SQS, right? By creating a priority queue. And the second thing is you can create a SQS. I'm sorry, you can, this is one of the workflow, right, that I have mentioned here. There's a producer which creates the messages for SNS topic. SNS topic will push the message to SQS queue, so it can be in order queue or audit queue. So those are who are the subscriber for the producers, right? They will get the message. This is basically the workflow that I was trying to explain. So we can send and receive and delete maximum of 10 messages in a request. Okay, so this is the number that you need to remember, that is maximum of 10 messages in the request. Okay, and another thing is message retention period, which can be from 1 minute to 14 days, right? So remember, it might be little it's set up the examination the exam can be set. In exam you can see scenario based question, like you have default visibility timeout, the minimum is 0 seconds here, right? But the message retention period, it's 1 minute to 14 days. So sometimes you might confuse with those terms. So just go through this documentation once more, which helps you to memorize those terms, and you can look those terminologies in AWS console too by going through SQS service and just giving a try to it. Okay, so message retention period is 1 minute to 14 days, and by default it's 4 days. And delay queues, there is something called delay queues, which lets you to postpone the delivery of new messages in the queue for the specific number of seconds. And talking about dead letter queue, it is a queue that source queue can target for messages that can't be processed. Okay, so if the messages are not able to process, then we can keep it in dead letter queue, right? So we have another service called AWS long polling. So it depending upon the scenario, AWS long polling helps in reducing the cost. So we'll go through it why. Okay, so as we had discussed that sort polling by default, right, what does it do is it returns the message immediately even if there is no message in the queue, you know. So to recover a kind of this scenario, there is a we have the thing called long polling. What does it do is it returns the message as the message become available. So that means you'll not get any message without with empty responses. But in sort polling you might get a lot of empty responses and false empty responses. See, because it immediately, sort polling will immediately return a message even if there are no messages in the queue. But long polling, it won't happen. So in long polling the message will return only if the message is available. Okay, so it helps in eliminating the false empty responses. And you can change receive message wait times to seconds from 0 to 20 seconds, right, for long polling. And what does it do? It helps in avoiding the burning of CPU cycles, for example when using EC2 to process your messages. Long polling helps reduce the cost of SQS by eliminating the number of empty responses when there are no messages available, right? So you can enable long polling for new or existing queue using AWS Management Console or AWS SDK for Java, right? So as we have gone through this, we can basically list out the benefits for long polling, that are eliminate empty responses by allowing Amazon SQS to wait until a message is available in the queue before sending a response, eliminating false empty responses by querying all, return message as soon as they become available, right? So there's another thing where you can see the matrices of different kind with the help of CloudWatch matrices for SQS, right? You can see these many kinds, like approximate number of messages delayed, approximate number of messages not visible, and so on, right? So talking about SQS batch actions. So to reduce cost or manipulate up to 10 messages with a single action, you can use send message batch, delete message batch, change message visibility batch. Okay, these are the things, because you might get a scenario where you need to select one of them in the examination, right? So to reduce cost or to manipulate up to 10 messages in a single action, as I had mentioned here, somewhere here, yeah, you can send and delete and receive up the max of 10 messages in a request, right? This we have, for that number we can use the following action, right? Send message batch, delete message batch, and change message visibility batch. You can take advantage of batch functionality using a query API or AWS SDK that supports SQS batch actions. So there are some of the facts for SQS. What is that? To select the message to delete, use receipt handler of the message, right? Suppose you want to delete a message in SQS, right? You need to use this thing, receipt handler. So use receipt handler of the message, not the message ID which you receive when you send the message, right? So you can use data later queues to isolate messages that can be processed for later analysis. Suppose, let's say you want the message which is not processing right now, and you want to process it for later by doing some analysis. Then use dead letter queues, right? And always note that SQS has no encryption by default. So SQS doesn't encrypt messages by default. You need to set up encryption manually, right? So talking about simple workflow service, right? So simple workflow service, we have I have included various scenarios that you might get in the examination. So what are the programming languages supported? STS available in simple workflow is Ruby, Java, .NET and PHP. So we can use IAM by integrating with SWS. Similarly, as we had talked about SQS, we can integrate IAM with SQS as well as SWF. So what you can do, you can grant IAM users permissions to access Amazon SWF. IAM users can only access the SWF domains and API that you specify. Now we'll come to domains. Okay, what is the maximum number of SWF domains allowed in AWS account? So that's 100, you know. So you can use maximum of 10,000 workflow and activity types. So there's two things. For the workflow and activity types, that's 10,000, but maximum number of domains is 100, you know. That is the thing that you need to remember. And always notice, simple workflow service guarantees the delivery of message. Okay, how long can workflow execution occur? The workflow execution can run for a maximum of 1 year, and each workflow execution can grow up to 25,000 events, right? So these numbers you should look at it before going to examination. You should remember it, because you are going to get some kind of questions, similar questions which require these numbers. You know, you need to remember this number before going into the examination. Okay, in SWF, what are the containers called for segregating application resources? So the containers for segregation of application resources is nothing other than the domain, right? So we have this, we had discussed, right? We have within an AWS account we can have 100 domain, right? So in SWF you define logical containers called domains for your application resources. Domains can only be created at the level of your account, AWS account, and may not be nested. Okay, developing deciders in AWS SWF. So when you think about deciders, always remember it is a kind of coordination logic, right? I have highlighted here. It's a kind of coordination logic. A decider is the implementation of coordination logic of your workflow type that runs during the execution of your workflow. You can run multiple deciders for a single workflow type. And what is true about SWF is human can perform an activity task but not a decision task. Okay, so I'm going to quickly go over the benefit of SWF. Is one of the major use case of SWF is video encoding. Okay, so this is video encoding is one of the major use case of SWF. So there are other core benefits too. They are centralize the coordination of steps in application, automate the workflow that include human tasks. So what does this mean? Automate the workflow that include human tasks, right? This is same. So we can notice this point. See, human can perform activity tasks but not distance tasks. That's why SWF helps in automation of workflow that include human tasks, right? So it helps in managing the flow of work between application component. It helps in integrating a range of programs and components. It helps in developers use asynchronous programming in the development of their applications. Now we come to the next topic, which is STS, which is also known as simple token service, right? So this token service, right? So this security token service, I'm sorry, I told simple. It's not simple. It's security token service. So security token service helps you to create a temporary credentials. It creates a temporary limited privileges credentials, and it helps you to it helps users to assume the role, right? And it generates, its main purpose is that it generates the federated credentials for IAM users, right? So we have two things, right? For creating this thing, we have SAML and we have OpenIT Connect, right? When you go through it, you can also see we have Cognito for the use of for Facebook users, Google users, right? And so we'll go through these points that AWS allows federated users request only when both the attached policy and the IAM user policy explicitly allow the federated users to perform the requested action. So STS assume role with SAML. So what does it do? It returns a set of temporary security credentials for users who have been authenticated via SAML authentication response. The response security credentials written by this operation consist of AWS credentials, that is access key ID and secret access key, as well as it will contain security token. By default, the security credentials created by assume role with SAML last for 1 hour, right? It is timed, so it only lasts for 1 hour, right? It is timed and only lasts for 1 hour. However, you can use the duration seconds parameter to specify your session, okay? So talking about SNS, right? We should know that SNS is the push-based system, right? And it is a notification service. So this is I have included some of the scenario questions that you might get in solution architect associate examination, and some of them are straightforward too. So basically you need to know about the numbers like characters, 256 character, how many days, right? These numbers you should remember it. And even some of the thing that you need to remember is the endpoints, the format, like I have mentioned here, the various SNS endpoint for Northern Virginia, right? So it might ask what is the particular endpoint for SNS in Northern Virginia region, right? So it's SNS.US East 1, so it might be different for another reason, right? For West, right? It might be US West 1, similar thing, right? .aws.amazonaws.com, right? So moving to next question, what are appropriate ways for you to provide timely device specific instruction to end users when announcing this downtime? For that you need to send a single message, right? For that downtime you need to send a single message but customize the text in SNS field, message field, so that its device gets only the information that is appropriate for them, so that you don't end up with sending the message, unnecessary message to everyone else, right? So what is the format of an Amazon SNS topic? So topic names are limited to 256 characters. It can be alphanumeric. There can be hyphens and underscore in it, and topic names must be unique within the AWS account. This is one of the important topic. So topic name must be unique within the AWS account, same as your like your ES3 bucket should be unique. Topics also should be unique, right? After you delete a topic, you can reuse the topic name, right? It's the same thing. So when a topic is created, Amazon SNS will assign a unique ARN, Amazon resource name, to a topic. So whenever you create a topic, the thing called ARN is assigned to the topic, right? And it will give some kind of endpoint which is associated with AWS account ID. So it will look something like this for US East 1, right? Just look through it, because you might get a questions and where you need to select one option among all, right? So basically it will include ARN, right? So how the ARN is created, Amazon resource name is created out of topic, right? So it will be ARN, AWS SNS, right? And the reason name, account ID, and my topic, right? Topic name. So that's the format. Just look through this before going to the examination. So another question: how long will subscription request remain pending while waiting to be confirmed? So token included in confirmation of message sent to endpoints on the subscription request are valid for 3 days, right? So it's only valid for 3 days. So this is the number that you need to remember, right? So the next question is, can a message be deleted after being published? No, the message can't be deleted after it's being published. It's same like the message you send from your mobile to another mobile. If you send a message from your cell phone to any other person, right, he will receive the message even though you delete the message in your cell phone. Okay, so does Amazon SNS provide at least once delivery message to Amazon SQS? Yes, Amazon SNS guarantees that each message is delivered to SQS at least once. Okay, so we have protocols for AWS SNS that are HTTP, HTTPS, email, emailJSON, Amazon SQS, application AWS Lambda, and SMS. So just go through it, because I think you'll probably get a scenario-based question where you need to select 2 or 3 options among these, right? So we have the thing called SNS message filtering. So what does it do is, if you don't want the message to be sent to some particular person, you can use this service. So it basically helps in excluding messages for someone in the group, right? So another thing we have SNS message attribute items and validation, right? So for name, it can be anything from A to Z, right? And it can be small letters or capital letters. It can be anything from 0 to 9. It can have underscore, hyphens, and periods, but notice that the name must not start or end with a period. So it's basically like creating a bucket, but notice when you create a bucket, you can use A to Z, right? You should not use A to Z while creating a bucket, but here you can while you are setting the name for SNS message attribute. Alright, so other things are basically the same, and it can be 256 character long, right? and the type is data type, and they are string, and it can be string.array or number and binary. The data is case sensitive and can be 256 byte long, right? And another thing is these things can be null at all. So this is one of the important thing that you need to remember going to the examination. The name, type and value can be empty or null. So this is pretty much that I have covered about these topics. Maybe just go through it. I have shared the link for this document, and don't forget to subscribe my channel for looking similar videos. Thank you for watching.